Hey guys, my name is Brandon and welcome to or welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you like what you see in here, you're more than welcome to hit the subscribe button so you stay notified every time I upload a new video. Okay, let's get straight on with today's video. Hey everyone and welcome back to isthatbrandon. So in today's video I'm going to be doing a review for episode 15 of I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here 2024. At the beginning of the episode we found out that it was raining quite a lot and there was a lot of thunder, with Alan saying there was lots of water and Barry saying that he felt like they might need to cancel the whole show and genuinely get the people out of there, minus the pun. OT said that Melvin's bed was absolutely soaked and that he had to actually sleep on the jungle, in kind of the jungle telegraph where they obviously do their little pieces to camera. And Reverend Richard said to Melvin that he's welcome to have his breakfast because obviously Reverend Richard wasn't really that hungry. And GK was on breakfast duty and she basically said that people were requesting weird things like eggs, but obviously that's kind of out of her, not area of expertise, but with what she had, limited ingredients, they weren't able to make eggs. Barry explained that Melvin didn't seem like he was in a great place, he had a bit of a dampened spirit, and he basically just said to Melvin, you're going to be fine, you're tough. And then Oti said to him that she loves him a lot, he's almost like a brother to her in here. And Melvin basically explained that he wasn't having a fun time, with Oti saying everyone's going to be proud of him, he just needs to remember what they're in the jungle for. So yeah, I think at this point everyone kind of has their little down days, especially when you're kind of in the middle of nowhere, you're stuck in a jungle with people you don't know. So yeah, I think he just obviously had his down days, and obviously he had the campmates around him to make him feel a bit better. And then OT got excited because there was a bit of sunshine, so they had a nice little cuddle and then they went off onto the next part of the show. OT had a little scream because she thought what she saw was a worm on Barry's bag. It ended up being a stick, and Maura basically also said that it felt like they're all just hallucinating, seeing things that they don't see, because that's just what they do when they're in the jungle. Dean asked Reverend to give him a sermon, like a religious poem, because I believe he was going to be taking on the next task. GK said that she wanted to get out of the boat, i.e. get out of her comfort zone, which is probably kind of what the next challenge was going to be all about. Talisa decided to start a game of alphabet with animals going from A to Z. Maura said orangutan, which didn't begin with A, that begins with O, and Alan told Maura to just leave herself out of the game. The next trial was called Spiralling Out of Control, and Barry said, I'll do it, and Alan said, whatever it is mate, you've absolutely got it. Barry said it's his time to step up, and he basically went to the trial area with Ant and Dec, and they basically said to him that he's going to have one hand free and one hand to throw balls into the open hatches. So he was kind of like spinning around what looked like a dartboard on his back. Everything you could think of was crawling around him, and he had to just kind of, yeah, with one arm down, chuck balls in the different components. So for the first 4 rounds he had 2 minutes, then he had 3 minutes, and then every round the spinner was spinning a little bit faster. So in round 1 he had cockroaches and mealworms thrown in, he won out of the 2 stars there. Round 2, mudworms and crabbies, he got 2 out of 2 stars. Round 3, fish guts and crickets, he got 2 out of 2 stars. And then the 4th round was ants, green ants, so 2 out of 2 stars again. And then the final round was scorpions and spiders, and he got 3 out of the 3 stars there, so a total of 10 out of 11, which was not too bad at all. Barry said thank you boys, thank you for your encouragement, and asked whether they could have custard, apple pie and ice cream back at camp, because obviously he loves all 3 of those. And he basically said that it felt like he's got good neck muscles and that sort of challenge was a good workout for your abs. Oti said to Danny and Dean, Melvin kind of needed to have a little bit of a sleep without any distractions, and I guess now he's had that sleep, he probably feels that little bit better. And Melvin said to Reverend Richard that these campmates are the only reason that he is staying in camp. GK said that they're eating tonight, and Barry didn't really seem to be bothered by the trial that he just did. And Dean said that Barry explained the situation really quickly and then just went to go and sit down, as if just, you know, nothing has actually happened. Dean said to Reverend and OT that he wants to eventually move out and move down to Manchester with his partner Michael, who he's currently speaking to at the moment. And Reverend Richard asked Maura if she was in a relationship or whether she was exclusive, and she said she's not official with anybody, but the person she's currently with is somebody that she already knows. Dean said maybe Reverend Richard wasn't a Towie fan, because maybe he obviously doesn't know about the show, and Maura explained to Dean that cheating is hard, and it's especially hard to deal with. She's always been on her own, but it would eventually be nice for her to be with somebody. The next part of the show was for the campmates to win letters from home, so they had to guess the secret password created by the campmates' loved ones from back at home and mime the word, so kind of like just by moving their mouths, to see how many of those 11 we would win. All 11 of them were won, so each of them chose which celebrity they wanted to do the mime, and then obviously had to guess their word. So Maura chose Dean, her secret word was Casper. Danny chose Alan, and his word was Bolton Wanderers. Dean chose Maura, and his word was Wee Chicken. Oti chose Melvin, and her word was Harrow Island, where she kind of was like, I don't know what that is, and then she worked out, oh, that's where her and her husband got married. Barry chose Reverend Richard, and his secret word was Cherry Trifle. GK chose Talisa, and her secret word was Rabbi, with GK saying that Rabbi is kind of what she called her rabbit, Rabbi Williams. Colleen chose GK, and her secret word was Petrol Station, which is where Wayne Rooney proposed to her. Talisa chose Oti, hers was Lara Croft, with Talisa saying that was a nickname. Alan chose Danny, Butterfly Kisses, that's the name that Alan is called, from his daughter Sienna. I think it's just like a song about father and daughter. Melvin chose Colleen, and his secret word was Mint Tea, which Melvin says only his sister would know that. And Reverend Richard asked Colleen, Reverend Richard said to Colleen, he didn't know how Colleen's proposal would be in a petrol station. There was also another one in there. Reverend Richard chose Barry, and his one was More Tea Vicar. For dinner, they had emu sausages, kumara quenelle, which I believe was just chips, and Maura explained that she was smelling the flavour. Talisa said that GK stepped up from yesterday in terms of preparing the food, and GK said that Alan's sausage fell on the floor, with Talisa adding just wash it, put it back in the bowl. Melvin said that sausage was next level, and GK said that that was probably the best meal that everyone has had yet, especially because it was obviously cooked by her. Then they were able to read out all of their letters to each other. So Alan's letter for Talisa said that she was strong. GK's letter for Reverend Richard said that his journey was a journey of growth with the campmates. Barry's letter for Danny was that Danny was a brave dad. Maura's letter said that people were amused by her banter with Reverend Richard. GK, she was cracking people up, her screams, her little faces, and she was a little jungle babe. They told Barry to keep up the good work and not to bring any of those spiders back home. Colleen was the strongest woman that they know, and they wanted her to go all the way, showing everyone her character. Dean was doing brilliant, overcoming his fears. They were excited to see Alan on the outside give Alan a big cuddle, watching how beautiful and kind Oti is with her South African energy. And for Melvin, he was just genuinely surrounded by genuine campmates, and everybody was excited for jollof chicken and rice once they come out of the jungle. We then found out that the second person to be leaving the jungle was either Barry or Dean, and it was in fact Dean who was out of the jungle, with Dean screaming, "I'm going home." He lasted 16 days, he did 7 trials, and he won 33 stars for camp. He saw his 2 weeks of flashbacks, and he said he couldn't even believe that he was on the show. He said he soaked up the trials and the experience, and it does sometimes get quite boring in there, and sometimes you just have to play games in order to, you know, get people going and get people a little bit excited. He explained that over time the trials got better, and the more that you do it, the more you get used to it, adding that he is a strong person, but he's obviously never been in that situation before. In terms of the wood and water, he said that Jane usually did all the wood when he was at trials. Melvin never asked him to help, he just let Dean sleep. And then in terms of lifting morale, Danny said that him and Talisa... And then in terms of lifting morale, Dean said that Danny and Talisa were music royalty, saying that, you know, stop singing was not gonna stop them singing, and he just said that he learned that life is better when it's simpler, and he wants GK to win, but they're all really good people. So that was it for episode 15. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Is That More Brandon. So in today's video, I'm going to be doing a review for episode 16 of I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here 2024. At the beginning of the episode, obviously we'd found out we've lost two housemates, we've lost 2 campmates. Fuck off. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Is That More Brandon. So in today's video, I'm going to do a review to episode 16 of I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. Now at the beginning of the episode, we have found out that we've now lost 2 campmates. So Jane's gone and Dean's gone. So we have 10 campmates left in the jungle. Maura said they have mice on their board and they seem to be going under her bed as well. She said she wasn't up for a trial at this time of the night. And Talisa said camp maintenance need to put things away, i.e. Danny and Melvin, because obviously the task people have changed. Melvin said he had a great night's sleep, and he said there was obviously no rain as well, which was good. In the hours just before Dean left camp, Reverend Richard woke him up softly, Maura squealed, and GK explained that there was a pot left out, and again there was a pot under her bed, which meant there was mice around. OT said to Dean that it feels like people have been brought together by Dean, and he was obviously the light of the camp, and Danny was shocked because he was such a big personality. Maura said it's always who you don't expect to go, and GK said that him and her had the same humour. She's going to miss him, and it feels like it's been forever, but it's only been a few minutes, with Talisa saying camp is too chill, and Reverend Richard asking who's going to not go and fetch our water now. That's a little bit of a joke because Dean was never around to help Melvin, and obviously, yeah, Danny was overseeing that task as well. The next challenge was called Farmyard of Fear, and again, another 2 people were going to be taking part in this. GK said that Colleen actually wanted to do a challenge the other day, so she and Alan both put themselves forward. Colleen said she was shocked about Dean going, and she's only done 1 trial, which is why she put herself forward. Anton revealed they had to transport nasties on a wheelbarrow into Scales, and the other person would then have to go through an obstacle course to get that wheelbarrow of stuff and move it into the bath. The bath had to then measure a certain height in order to win so many stars. So Alan decided that he would go onto the top, so he would collect all the stuff, tip it onto wheelbarrow, and then would take said wheelbarrow and measure in the bath. Alan said a little bit of northern grit here. He was transporting things like molasses, rotten fruit, feathers, which I'm presuming didn't actually carry anything, and Colleen basically explained at the end of it that she enjoyed the challenge. Alan didn't know half the stuff that he was moving, and they ended up getting 10 out of the 10 stars. They basically said that they should go and pretend that they actually got like 2 stars, and Alan added they wanted to see Barry's reaction. And they both went back, and Colleen basically said that they ran out of time, they did their best, they got 2 out of 2 stars. And then Oti said, yeah, they're not going to probably have much food for tonight. GK said more rice and beans for lunch, and obviously the scraps for dinner. Reverend Richard asked whether he can get away with nude showers, with Oti saying that she didn't want to see him naked, she likes her priests with their clothes on. Danny asked Reverend Richard, Danny said to Reverend Richard about how he met his girlfriend, saying 11 months went by, and then she surprisingly messaged him for drinks and food. GK and Maura were having a conversation where she was telling GK that, you know, she's going to have lots of bad press, all the different stories about love, and, you know, Love Island, the show she was on about 5 years ago, there was still fake stories and fake news going out about it. And GK explained that it's hard to keep relationships private, especially when you are in this sort of world. They were both just sitting there washing their underwear in the water, so, you know, can you imagine doing anything better, washing your underwear in a dirty river with a Love Islander in the middle of Australia. The next challenge was Kev's Wheels on Deals, or Deals of Wheels, and it was OT, Danny, Maura and Rev. So you had 2 of them in the art studio, and 2 of them who had to guess what those drawings were. So in the art studio was OT and Danny, so OT was dressed as a board, Danny was dressed as a pencil, so we had to use the tip of the pencil at the top of his outfit to draw on the board. And it was up to Maura and Reverend Richard to discuss and, yeah, decide the word that was closest to the drawing. So the words included house, shoe, hippo, rat, bike and kangaroo. And Reverend Richard said that it seemed like someone drew a sad shoe for the clown, the hippo looked like a whale, and Danny said that the kangaroo looked a bit like it had E.T. in its pouch. For their treat, they went to the ice cream truck and won sweeties, but whether they were actually going to win those sweeties depended on whether the campmates got the question correct. So the Communards, so the band that Reverend Richard was part of, they were asking how many times did they sing the word baby in the song Baby Don't Leave Me This Way. So it was either 9, 11 or 13, and yeah, they said 9, which was the wrong answer, so they presumed that the correct answer was 11. They obviously lost their strawberry pencils, and GK asked Melvin back at camp if he was to do any other job, what would he do, and he said he'd be a teacher. That's, I think, what he was before he got famous. And GK explained that she'd really love to do office work, have her pens, her sticky notes. And yeah, when Danny and Maura came back to camp with the other two, Danny ended up waking up Barry dressed as a pencil, so scared the life out of him a little bit. Talisa explained that she had caravans with her auntie in Essex, and GK basically explained that she had a time where she was in a caravan somewhere and she just physically couldn't close the caravan door for any privacy. Colleen was talking about a caravan holiday that she usually has in Wales with her family, and Melvin said he's only had one holiday caravan situation in Scarborough, with Alan saying he's never actually been abroad until he was 12 years old. Danny also went on to explain that he was on the Late Late Show with Rod Stewart, and Colleen said that she was excited to see everybody's reactions, obviously when it came to dinner, with Danny reading out the board and it saying that they've won 10 stars, with Oti saying that everyone was like, huh? And they had hare and mangoes for dinner. So Maura was surprised that they won 12 stars. Maura was surprised that they won 10 stars, and Talisa said cheeky little buggers. GK did her best impression of Reverend Richard, acting all posh and priesty. And Danny said thanks for lying to us, with Maura adding it was a lovely surprise. After dinner, we found out that the third person to be leaving I'm a Celebrity was either Talisa or Oti, and it was Talisa who was voted next out of the jungle. She lasted 17 days, covered in cockroaches, and she was on the fright bus and involved with the eating trial. She just shouted, "Someone get me pizza, it is tough in there." She said she can't believe what she just did. Antoinette asked her how she felt, and she said she was more appreciative of everything around her, obviously now being in that situation, and you feel different versions of yourself, and the best thing to do is just be yourself. She said in terms of chef skills, she actually researched some of the meals beforehand, so things like emu sausages or kangaroo sausages were the best meals, but the tail was tough to eat and tough to cook, and things like that needed to be stewed. And in terms of the sing-alongs, she stayed away from those, and she said that the trials were as bad as she thought they would be before she actually went in, saying that having to eat 2 spiders, she just wanted to get it over and done with. Her words of encouragement, basically towards Melvin and trying to get him a date with Cara Vorderman, she said she wanted to potentially make that happen. They did show a little voice note, but obviously with technical difficulties live, that wasn't played that well. And she said that she needed to be mindful of everyone's emotions, because obviously everyone has their different ways of dealing with things. And then in terms of who she wanted to win, she said that she'd have liked to see Oti win, because she's an earth angel and also a beautiful human. So that's now 3 campmates out of the jungle. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Is That More Brandon. So in today's video, I'm going to be doing a review to the 17th episode of I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here 2024. At the beginning of the episode, Barry said he was interested to see who's going to be getting the chop. Oti said to Reverend Richard she's nervous about what's going to happen, and Rev said as long as you feel like you're doing the right thing, that's obviously the most important thing. Oti said people are leaving the jungle now and it's just getting a little bit sad. GK decided to have a hand wash shower and style it as if she was doing a YouTube video, with Talisa and Melvin watching on, kind of giggling as if like it was quite funny to watch. And Talisa said, you know, you've just got to enjoy every moment. GK said that she needs to make sure the rice is actually cooked, adding that she's a little bit flammable, and Melvin also added that he didn't even need to go and have a toilet break during the night. Reverend Richard started singing a song, 10 jungle campmates sitting on a log, and then obviously one was about to leave. They obviously then found out Talisa was out of the jungle, and Oti said that Talisa was the older sister and the older figure in here, with Reverend Richard adding that she was good fun and also a great cook. Alan said he lost his original wife from the Leaders Lodge, and GK added that they are now in single digits. Danny said jungle life continues, chores still have to be done, and the next challenge was the sinister Phasophagus, The Mummy Returns, which was obviously the trial that Dean did not very well, so that was obviously back again, with GK saying that Dean seemed to do that one where you ask and answer questions about Egypt, and he obviously said the phrase to get himself out of there. Oti put herself forward straight away. GK said if anyone can do it, Oti can do it, and Maura said for Oti it doesn't really get any worse than a huntsman spider on your face. Oti said it's her first time doing a trial where you know what it is, and it's also the first time her doing a trial by herself. She was basically told by Ant and Dec there was 9 questions to answer for each of the campmates that were still remaining in the jungle, and she was obviously covered with a variety of different things, such as mealworms in her head box, sand where her arms and legs were, crickets, beetles, ants, scorpions, burrowing cockroaches and beachworms. So she had to answer 9 of those questions, and she did very, very well, and for each question that she answered correctly, she saw a star drop down her face. She had to bite it with her hand, push it out of the hole, and obviously that counted as one of many stars that she had. Oti said it was her worst nightmare, and the bugs bite, the worms crawl around, but she managed to get redemption for Dean wherever he is. And GK explained to some of her other campmates that she used to be a goth with purple lipstick, with Maura saying she used to wear a choker, and then when Oti came back, she said she absolutely smashed the challenge. GK asked Reverend Richard when he realised he was famous, with him saying that he was part of this band. Girls used to throw their knickers at him, and Danny also joined in, basically saying how fans used to wait outside the venue for him, knocking on windows, and he said it's nice to be able to make a difference to people's lives, especially during their hard times, kind of a way for them to just escape. Barry entered the Commonwealth Games, and he won gold medal at 17. He was a world champion, and he ended up going back to Ireland. And then Maura basically explained that when she was on Love Island and she was heading back to Heathrow, there were swamps of fans. For Alan, 27 constant years being on Coronation Street, and obviously now being a father, it's a little bit more difficult to keep up their reputation. And Colleen said that eventually it was difficult for Wayne to just sit and watch his son be able to play football, because all the kids would run up to him and get photos of him, and the kids felt like they weren't really being watched or encouraged. They were just kind of, everyone was going to dad rather than like watching the son. GK and Melvin were discussing about how Reverend Richard was a pop star and now he's a legend, with Alan saying the hips don't lie. And for dinner, their campmates had silkies. Maura said that she could see the feet coming out of the bag. Reverend Richard described them as black dinosaurs. GK said that, oh no, what a surprise, she set the pan on fire again, and Danny said it seemed to be GK's party trick. Colleen said that GK in the kitchen with Maura helping out is obviously, you know, quite helpful, because, you know, GK was burning rice. Not really her strong point, but I think she'll know how to absolutely smash rice and beans outside of the jungle. That Grace didn't quite grasp history, because she asked him whether he was in the Second World War. The next part of the challenge was for the campmates to be able to try and visit the jungle arms. So Maura said we're all getting a drink and you will have a chance to win. Up next was Kiosk Kev, and they had to do jungle musical statues. So they basically, all of the 9 campmates that were left were in rows of 3. They had to dance to the music, and as soon as the music stopped, they had to pose following the pose that was on Kev's board. So the first song was Macarena, so Maura, Alan and Reverend Richard put themselves forward, and there was obviously things dropping down. Maura wasn't able to get in position, so she failed at first, and then eventually all 3 of them passed and they all went to the bar. Up next was Stop by the Spice Girls, so it was Colleen, GK and Oti, so the 3 of them did that one, and at first again GK screamed a little bit, so she didn't pass that. Then they all managed to pass, and the third group was You Can't Touch This, MC Hammer, so Melvin, Barry and Danny. Again, they all managed to pass it first time, so dance, and then follow the poses, putting their hands on the different walls and stuff. Maura was stuffing herself and eating all the snacks. Alan screamed there was pizza and chips, and they were all singing karaoke one by one in Australia, with Barry saying it didn't seem like he would ever be doing that, with Colleen adding that Barry was great. Danny said that GK smashed a version of his McFly song, and Melvin sang Hey Ya by Outkast with the Jungleettes, i.e. Maura, Oti and Colleen, I think it was. Oti sang like a flute church sounding version of a Whitney song, so that sounded really nice. And Maura did karaoke, which kind of scared quite a lot of the other housemates. Alan said it kind of sounded like the artist was there in the jungle with them, and GK said 10 out of 10 for effort. Maura said what a moment, best night ever, with Colleen adding it was a night to remember. But then again, back to the public vote, and the 4th person to leave the jungle was either Melvin or Maura, and we found out it was Melvin who was the next to leave the jungle. He spent 18 days in the jungle, and he joined Maura and Richard on their meal, or on their trial. What? I can't read. So Melvin survived 18 days, and he joined Maura and Richard at their first trial, where they were pretending to obviously be on the trial with him. He also did the water tank trial, and he basically said to Ant and Dec he was ready to go, and it was the best thing that he's done because obviously of the people in there, and there was a lot of amazing elements in the process. He said the letter from his sister was really good, and he obviously had adapted to the situation. And he said in terms of new things that he's learned about his caring nature, the fact that he would obviously help everybody else, and he even didn't realise that he snored in the jungle as well. He explained that Oti was like his sister in there. They got on really, really well. She's super funny, super positive, and all of the jobs were tough apart from the dunny. The cooking was obviously quite pressurising, and obviously for the wood, it's just that it's very far to walk. With Ant and Dec saying to Melvin that Dean had said he'd pulled his weight, with Melvin adding, no comment. Melvin said that the two people in there are jokers, that Ant and Dec are jokes, and they would just sit in there watch him. And he basically said, what does jungle life mean to you? Yeah, he basically just continued to say all the same sort of things. And he said in terms of who he wanted to win, Barry, Danny or Oti, they were kind of his three front runners. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Is That More Brandon? So in today's review, I'm going to be doing a review for the 18th episode of I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. So 18, 19, 20, 21, 4 episodes left, and then we find out who the winner of I'm a Celebrity is. So we have 8 people left: Maura, GK, Alan, Barry, Oti, Danny, Colleen and Reverend Richard. Oti said everyone was waking up with hangovers, adding that she only had 2 drinks. Colleen said that she had a hangover, and GK said maybe it's all the singing as to why that they've got a hangover. Barry said to Melvin he liked the backing dancers, and Maura said that a few of the others probably seemed threatened about her singing career when she leaves after the jungle. Danny said it was nice to see a different side to people, and Reverend Richard said that Melvin had the best moves out of everyone, with Oti saying that Melvin was also a pillar of support for her as well. Alan said having 3 slices of pizza and singing Let It Go, or as Barry said about Maura, singing Let It Go badly, was probably his highlight of the night. We then found out that for the final 8, they were now competing to win a ticket to Cyclone, and they would be able to be saved from 2 public votes, and there'd be 2 teams of 4 going against each other in the Arcade of Agony, and the top 2 from each group would be going to compete in that 4-people race to see who was going to get the golden ticket for Cyclone. So group 1 was Danny, GK, Richard and Colleen. Danny said that for Immunity ×2 in Cyclone Challenge, he needed to try and win this. GK said that her and Reverend Richard have won this easily, and Colleen and Danny were obviously very competitive. Maura was just a little bit confused as to what the agony part was. Alan said, well, the agony part's probably us listening to your singing voice again, and GK said that everyone wants to see her in a superhero outfit. So, for Danny, GK, Richard and Colleen, their competition was called Grim Grabbers. They had balls, they had tickets, and they basically just had to get the golden coins out from fish guts, put the coin in the machine, because each coin was 1 attempt at the machine, and then depending on what ball they got, it would either have tickets in it or a golden star. So the star would just win food for camp, and then the tickets would be them 1 step closer to winning that golden prize. So whoever had the most tickets at the end of their round won, and Colleen was putting balls, she was taking the balls out and putting tickets on the coins side, so obviously those tickets didn't count. Danny was just shouting balls, balls, tickets and stars. Both Colleen and Danny got a star each, and GK explained that she'd never want to do that again. She said that she's tried her hardest, she feels like she actually could have done quite well. Danny said to Reverend Richard to try and enjoy the creek and obviously the dirty water, and Colleen saying that she got a lot of balls, she might have succeeded to get into the final. GK asked Danny what celebrities have inspired him in terms of just his career or his life, and he said Bruce Springsteen. Reverend Richard said, whose life would you like to be living in? With Colleen saying potentially that of a royal, because you get to see things and do things that you don't get to see. And Reverend Richard said that people are always judged about what they do and what they say, and he'd like to potentially be in the life of Kevin De Bruyne, which I think he's a sportsman or a footballer. GK said Usain Bolt, because he obviously wouldn't pay for any of his meals. Barack Obama, people like that would know stuff that normal people in the world wouldn't know about. And Reverend Richard said that you'd be susceptible to conspiracies because that's just kind of a different world that you're living in. And then he asked GK who would she like to play her in a film. She said the film title would probably be called Below Average, and she'd love Paris Hilton to play her in the film because it would be iconic, which would be a story about her life and how it kind of all just worked out quite well. Danny said he'd have some sort of comedy called Lord of the North and potentially own some sort of pasty shop. And then we found out that for Oti, Maura, Barry and Alan, they were the second 4 contestants who were going to be taking part in this trial. And Alan said there's lots riding on it. Maura said she's very nervous, she has no idea what to expect. With the challenge being called Grimball Machines. Again, they were both at this Arcade of Agony, but a different mini game. Again, coins, balls, tickets and stars. So there was 4 stars up for grabs for camp. You had to get the coins to actually play the machine, the balls which then had tickets in, or stars, and then obviously, yeah, tickets which would be for themselves. Mealworms, crickets, cockroaches again, and fish guts as well. Yeah, Danny said to Colleen that football was always clean and healthy, with Oti asking Colleen about her childhood. She said she was a nursery nurse and Dad was a bricklayer, so she's installed it into her kids. And obviously, I think this is after they'd gone back to camp, but basically they had to put their hands in a box, similar to the other people, but instead of them being like an arcade machine, they were having to just run backwards and forwards and they'd play like a flat surface game. So I think they managed to get, Alan, Oti and Barry all managed to get a star each. Colleen didn't, so they got another 3 stars there, so in total there was 5. So 5 out of 8, which is not too bad. Alan explained that he started Coronation Street when he was at 16 years old, with his parents both supporting him. Danny said that his mum knew that and made him believe that he was amazing. And Reverend Richard said that meeting people as their normal versions of themselves was so much better than just kind of seeing what you read and hear about them in the media. Oti said that she was obviously born in South Africa in 1990, and at 4 years old she already started competing and training in terms of her dance. And for dinner they had Moreton Bay bugs. Maura said that the Moreton Bay bugs looked gross, but she is going to eat them. GK said that Danny deals with bugs, she just chops. So there was homemade chips, bit of oil, bit of vegetables, and they kind of hope for the best. And eventually, I think she said, or Danny said, that they'd love to work at a fish and chip shop. Yeah, I think GK said that. Would you like a bit of salt? Oti also explained to Reverend Richard that he farts in his sleep. And we found out that the top 4 facing themselves off in one final minigame before Cyclone was Colleen and Danny from the first group, and Maura and Oti from the second group. So very girl heavy, that's what Colleen added, with Maura saying that she thought it was going to be Alan. So yeah, Colleen, Danny, Maura and Oti were all competing to see who was going to win that Cyclone golden ticket. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Is That More Brandon. So in today's video, I'm going to be doing a review to the 19th episode of I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here 2024. So we found out that at the beginning of this episode, we were going to be losing 2 people by the end of the episode, and we were also going to find out who was getting the golden ticket for Cyclone and being not able to be voted for the next 2 eliminations. In the beginning, we found out there was a rat running around near Maura. There was a fly near Reverend Richard, and Danny said to GK when he's tired he doesn't feel confident, with Colleen saying that her family and friends want her to do the Cyclone, so for her it would be an amazing opportunity to be able to win that. Maura said there's a small chance that she could get to the final, and GK said that she'd be secretly fuming if she doesn't get it, and that in terms of her past, she used to wear hair extensions, used to have a blue clip on her hair, and Oti said that her fave band is Green Day. We found out that the top 4 were Colleen, Danny, Maura and Oti, with obviously Colleen saying that it was female heavy, Maura saying she was convinced it was Alan, and Oti saying that she wanted to get the golden ticket. Maura said that they're all competitive and she's still going to try her best, and the 4 of them had to take part in a game called Battle Blocks. All they had to do in their different 4 gameplay areas was just remove the blocks and put them in a grid, make the grid, run out, press the golden button, and then they won. So they all had different ways of doing it. You had Colleen and Danny who were kind of, as the piece was coming down, placing it in, and then just as it was in, moving it around. You had Oti who was creating the puzzle on the floor, and once it was on the floor, then she was just copying and pasting it in. And then you had Maura, who was just kind of screaming and just, you know, not really making much progress. So there was mealworms in their handheld holes, there was fish guts, you had rotten fruit and vegetables falling over all of them. But in the end, it was OT who managed to win that golden ticket, and she was the first person off to the cyclone. She said that she was pleased, she was dizzy, and she absolutely stinks, with Danny saying that OT had a game plan. Reverend Richard said to GK that he went from being poor to rich very quickly, and GK said that she actually spoke to her accountant and she was able to buy this black Porsche with red interior, which, you know, many years before she probably wasn't able to do. Danny said it's sad coming back as a loser, but he's absolutely happy for OT. And Maura asked GK Reverend Richard if anyone wanted any perfume. I think it was just some weird vegetable spray, or maybe it was just her armpit spray, I'm not sure. Alan said he now values time a lot more than anything else. Barry wants to be present in his children's life. Oti said that single fathers with children are not really spoken about much, especially on TV shows. And Colleen said it's nice to have fellow mums and dads in camp that they're all able to talk to. Barry explained to Danny that it was obviously difficult to know how to help, because he's obviously never had that experience before. And GK said that she's not really a celebrity, but younger people will know who she is. With Colleen saying that in terms of her going to her, you know, B&M or Home Bargains, people would ask her why she's shopping there. And Barry said that he wouldn't be insulted if people asked him for a photograph or a signature. He'd actually see it as a nice thing, because people actually recognise who he is. Maura explained to OT that people in the media would put her with men that she's not even connected with in the press. She's been called a bike, just saying that she'd kind of just be with anyone and, you know, do anyone. And she also said that a lot of people in the media also just talk about women, about how they look, as opposed to, you know, what they bring to the world, and it shouldn't just be about what people look like. With Maura saying to OT that she has the best S that she has ever seen. Barry, Alan, GK and Richard as the 4 losers of this potential cyclone game. They had to then face a trial as a 4 in order to win stars for camp. Danny said, make your way to the arcade. GK had just finished fizzling mealworms out of her bum, and then she said that, you know, want us to do it all over again. And they had to just do a simple game of Face Invaders. So all of them were in their little Space Invaders box, and they had to just hit the button on their machines as quickly as possible, again with things crawling on their heads, worms, spiders, the rest of it. And the quicker they click, the quicker they win stars, and the quicker they win their 2 stars, they then have to just endure the rest of the trial. They managed to get 7 out of 8 stars, with Grace actually finishing first, which meant she had to sit there and endure it the longest. Reverend Richard only managed to get 1 of his 2 stars, and he actually added that he underperformed. Oti said that when she gets out of the jungle, she's going to have a massive glass of wine. Oti said to Danny his middle name is Alan, and he doesn't really speak to his dad anymore. He's had therapy, and he's now close to his father-in-law. And for dinner, they were having eel. Oti said that she spotted the head of the eel, with Colleen saying it was a little bit too bony for her, Danny adding that it was lame, and Reverend Richard saying to Oti that he's 62, and obviously all the physical stuff, just in terms of life and also probably in the jungle, is a little bit challenging for him. We found out that either Barry or Maura were going to be evicted from the jungle, and actually Ant and Dex said it was both Barry and Maura who were eliminated from the jungle. I think at this point Maura looked over at Barry and whispered both, because I think she just had a feeling that, you know, they're getting close to the end, they need to get people out quickly, so there's a few double eliminations on the way, and this was one of the first ones. So we found out that the top 6 were GK Barry, OT, Colleen, Alan, Danny and Reverend Richard. So a decent group. I think they've all done very, very well. Obviously Reverend Richard was a late joiner to camp, but he just got involved and did a lot of the eating trials and just got on with it. Danny, obviously very brave, you know, very just, yeah, I'll do it, I'll help, I'll whatever. Alan, pretty much the same. A little bit quieter, but he still gets on. Colleen, yeah, again, similar to Alan, she's very just quiet, but she'll go, yeah, actually, I'll get involved in that. Or actually, yeah, I'll do a trial today. OT, again, full of laughter, full of light, full of energy. I think people like her because of that. And then GK Barry, again, a bit of a shock that she's actually done as much as she has done But yeah, again, very positive character, very popular character as well, which is why she's obviously made it at least halfway. So yeah, it was good to see her again opening up her shell, being funny, being confident, actually hanging around people who potentially could help her with her own career when she comes outside of the jungle as well. So yeah, they were your top 6. So firstly, Barry has survived 20 days. He had snakes crawling around, critters, and he sang his heart out in the jungle arms. He said it was interesting watching back those clips, and it was a great bunch of people. He said it was sad to have missed out on the cyclone, not having food and condiments, and it was nice that Danny had said that he felt like Barry was a father figure for him, with Barry saying that Danny was going to be the king of the jungle. He also said that his dad used to be a singer, used to perform on stage with his dad, which is why he's got such an amazing voice. And Ant and Dec also said to Barry that obviously from his first task when he couldn't see, they were making jokes about him the whole time, saying can he see? He hasn't got his glasses. With Barry saying that he's got blended vision. He has had it fixed, or he has had it checked out, but he has had it checked, has had it fixed, checked out. He has had it fixed, he has had it checked out, but yeah, he's probably going to have to get that done again. And he said that obviously he likes food more than he thought he would. And then obviously Maura then came out. She spent 15 days in camp, had goat testicles, spiders, and also endured the fright bus. She said she's really happy to be out, and she said that last night she knew she was probably going to be going, and that her feelings are never wrong. It was weird watching all the clips back, saying that there was lots of swearing and screaming, but she knew it was going to be tough. She said that she really enjoyed spending time with Reverend Richard for the first few days, and that she said that he actually made her sound normal because of some of the questionable and strange things that he would say. And there was a proper unit in there, everyone helped everyone, and there wasn't really any arguments, just a few disagreements about tasks and chores and the rest of it. And she basically said, yeah, after the trial it was kind of home sweet home, and that's kind of what they called camp, because they were so used to it by that point that we're actually going home. She said that it seemed like she was thinking about chocolate all the time, and when she gets out she's going to have a crispy bacon and egg bap, cheese and coffee, breakfast, pasta and red wine, and I think she said she was going to have like chicken and chips or something, we don't know, I'm not really sure. She said her winner was Father Richard, because obviously he wouldn't expect to win, so she wants someone that doesn't expect themselves to win. So that is it. We have 6 campmates out and we have 6 campmates in. That is the end of episode 19. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Is That More Brandon. So in today's video I'm going to be doing a review to the episode 20 of I'm a Celebrity Get Me Out of Here 2024. So we have our 6 campmates left. We have our 3 ladies, GK, Oti and Colleen, and our 3 men, Alan, Danny and Reverend Richard. Oti said that she still feels very relaxed, her nervousness is now gone. Danny said he's excited to be near the end, but obviously sad that some of them are going. Maura said to GK that she feels like this is her last night. She's been on a roller coaster, but she actually doesn't want to go yet. Danny was collecting water, Barry was helping, and Reverend Richard said that it was nice to have a growing bromance with the father and son, Barry and Danny, with Barry saying he was also prepared to leave. Danny said it was time to finally say goodbye to his jungle father, and GK said that she was in shock that Maura's gone, with Colleen adding that the both of them will be truly missed. Oti said that Maura has been an asset to her experience, and surprise, surprise, GK burnt the beans again. The next challenge was going to be called Dreaded Dregs, with another 2 celebrities taking part. Alan said Dregs is pub related, so it's probably something to do with drinking, and both Reverend Richard and Colleen put themselves forward. GK said to Colleen to think of her boys when she's doing the trial, and Danny said there's no pressure, just have fun, with GK saying to Danny, that doesn't sound believable at all. Colleen said that it doesn't seem like her strong point, but she's going to take one for the team anyway. And Ant and Dec had basically explained that both of them would actually be competing against each other, not just with each other. And for the 7th star, if they were to win it, they would be able to choose a drink for their campmates. So it was one person at a time. Round 1 was for Colleen, so she had to drink blended pig's testicle, with Reverend Richard saying, oh, what a champ. Round 2 was flip cup, so they had to basically have cups of blended cockroaches, and at the loser of that round had to then do a forfeit, which is just a round by themselves. So Colleen said that was a lot because there was literally 6 shot glasses of blended cockroaches. So they had to drink the drink, flip the cup and make the cup flip the other way around. So eventually, at the beginning, Colleen was doing really, really well, but Reverend Richard caught up and he won that round with Colleen saying, no, forfeit. So she had to endure round 3 by herself, which was shots. So she had 6 shots. 3 of them were blended camel teats, 3 of them were blended cow's anus. Reverend Richard explained that when she was drinking them, she was still drinking them like a lady. He was very ladylike, but she did manage to do all 6 of those, which was great. Round 4 was beer pong. So they each had 6 cups in front of them. The one at the front was blended witchy grubs. The 2 behind were pig's brain, and the 3 at the back were blended sheep's penis. So it was just one at a time, just ping pong, ping pong, ping pong. I think they landed in Reverend Richard's both times, so he had to drink 2 of the drinks, and they got 6 out of 6 stars as a total. Round 5 was called Fishbowl, and it was just a massive fishbowl of blended mealworms, crocodile anus and vomit fruit. Colleen managed about 5 seconds and struggled. Reverend Richard managed to drink the entire fishbowl, which was very brave and strong and probably quite disgusting. He managed to get that 7th star, so he managed to win everybody a drink at camp. Colleen said it felt like she was just standing in the toilet at a nightclub with her mate, kind of, you know, egging her on, and they managed to win a drink of choice for everyone. GK was doing her washing again, her clothes washing, and Alan actually decided to scare her, and Danny scared Oti while she was doing the dishes, and Colleen said to Reverend Richard, thank you for taking one for the both of us. So at this part in the show, each of the 6 almost finalists were then each leaving the camp one by one to go and do what they thought was some sort of secret mission or some sort of secret task, and actually one of their loved ones was waiting for them at a different part of the camp. So I think that's why they were in like 6 different locations, because they obviously couldn't film all 6 of the campmates in this, like, in different places at the same time. So kind of, I'm presuming 5 were at the camp, and then they would film this one wherever they were, and then just take one out of camp every time and make it all very, you know, theatrical. So the first person to leave the camp was GK. So she just went for a little stroll, what she was thinking she was going to do some sort of trial, and her mum Loretta was waiting for her sitting on the rocks where she was cleaning her clothes. So she's walked over and she was just like, oh my god, like, what the hell are you doing here? Like, all of them had pretty much the same reaction. She said that Dad, Ella and everyone is sending their love and they can't wait for her to come back home. Mum also said that Reverend Richard has a calming influence on her, and she said to her mum, give Ella a snog from me, and she was like, okay, maybe I won't do that. Reverend Richard saw his brother Will, and he said, we've met in some quite funny places, probably this is the weirdest, with Will saying that they're all very proud of him. He went back to camp, and he said, I'm going to go back to camp now, and you go back to your 5-star hotel and your 3-course dinners. Danny saw his partner Georgia and Cooper, his son. It was also her birthday, so he wished her a lovely happy birthday, and it was the most amazing feeling. He said he's learnt a lot from the people in there, and yeah, he needs to go back in there and, you know, win more stars. Oti saw her husband Marius. She said his was the last face that she expected to see, and he brought her a gift from their daughter which had stains on it, so I think it was just a bib with food stains. She was like, oh, couldn't have got a better gift than that. Alan saw his brother Stephen, saying that Sienna's been watching the show every night, it's difficult not texting and calling. And finally Colleen managed to see her mum Colette and her kids Cass and Kat. Colleen said she didn't want them to leave, and she said, you know, it's the countdown for Christmas now, it's now on. Oti said to her campmates that she's now finally got the rose gold ring after 10 years of being engaged, and Danny said he didn't realise how much he was going to miss his family, with Rev saying it's nice to see everybody with a smile on their face, with Colleen saying she had a happy smile on her face as well. For their dinner they had wild boar ribs with garlic, with Oti saying that Reverend Richard licked all of his fingers, looked at her in the eyes, and she needed a little bit of warning for that rather than him just doing it. And Reverend Richard asked GK what she's learned about herself. She said that she's learned that being Grace is just as being good as her character GK, and she's now at peace with her own skin. Oti said that she's finally vulnerable and honest with her feelings, which is obviously quite important. Alan said at 42 it is still possible to make friends. Reverend Richard said life is only just opening up for him. Danny said he can now sleep with a calm brain, and Colleen said that she can now accept that she deserves to be here and she's been letting herself go a little bit more as time has gone on. After that very emotional meeting, we found out that again, either Alan or GK Barry were going to be leaving the jungle, and Ant and Dec basically revealed it was both of them. So the top four were Oti, Colleen, Danny and Reverend Richard. They will be the four facing the cyclone. But up first out was Alan. So he'd spent 21 days in the I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here jungle. He had pig's testicle, spiders, and was also on the fright bus. He said that having watched those throwback videos, he's just noticed how big his beard has grown since being in the jungle. And obviously with the show, you never know who's going to be going in, whether people's personalities are going to clash. And he said that he made friends very quickly. He learned that he was able to open up and make friends with having a morale, having been from Manchester originally. Part of the experience was obviously getting used to it and, you know, meeting new people. He said in terms of the trials, at home he wouldn't pick spiders up, but in the jungle he had to just get on with it and then think about it afterwards. He said it was emotional speaking about his daughter and how bored he was in the jungle, but he's happy that he's finally able to leave. And he said that when he went to see his brother, he was almost sat like a garden gnome. It was emotional and a very intense experience, but he also said that he thinks Danny's going to win the show. Oti's also very hardworking as well. And then it was over to GK. So she'd spent 21 days in the jungle. She was basically scared of spiders and everything else. She came 5th, with GK saying, "Oh my god, there's a hill," as she was walking up to see Ant and Dec. She said she can't believe she's looked like that on national television. Obviously, she's watched all those videos back where she didn't have any makeup on. She's like, I can't believe like people actually let me go on TV looking like that. She said she wouldn't even put her worst enemy through going through that experience, and she's learned that she never wants to come back here. She said she's found herself like she's been on a week in Thailand, and the hardest thing for her was the boredom and the hunger, because she eats when she gets bored, but she's obviously bored, but there's nothing to eat. And she said when Reverend Richard came into the jungle, she wasn't bored. She didn't realise that she was a potty mouth, and she said that Reverend Richard is a little bit more dirtier than her. She said that Reverend Richard was going to be taking GK to the opera, and she said she was going to take him for dinner somewhere or something like that. She said she couldn't sleep after the trial that she had with the water, and her confidence, especially after having gone through what she went through in week 1, she said she would have just left. And she hopes huntsman spiders go extinct. So at least she was honest. She still had her funny personality coming through right till the end. She said she can't wait to eat food and to snog Ella. She wants to go and take Reverend Richard to get a vajazzle. Hopefully those two worlds will collide. She's fuming that she's not doing the cyclone. Reverend Richard has to win it, otherwise it's a fix. And if it's not him, she wants to see Colleen win because she's done her hair every day of the show. So that is it. So we now have 8 contestants out of the show, and we have our final 4, Oti, Colleen, Reverend Richard and Danny. But that is the end of episode 20. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Is That More Brandon. So in today's review, I'm going to be doing a review to the 21st episode of I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here 2024. Oti, Colleen, Reverend Richard and Danny are now facing Cyclone, and it's now Cyclone Day. Reverend Richard asked Danny whether he slept well, and Danny said that the food put him to sleep. Alan said seeing the loved ones, it felt like they've been knitted so close together in there. And GK said that she was anxious because she wanted to get through to Cyclone, and it's just stressing her out not knowing either way. Danny said to Oti and Colleen it's kind of like being in like a live band jungle dressing room with just every day that there's just music and singing and the rest of it going on. Reverend Richard said that GK was funny, witty and great, with GK saying her and Alan are now going to go and get a Prosecco because obviously the both of them were out of the jungle. Colleen said having her northern connection with Alan was quite good, and Oti said that obviously now they've lost 2 strong people from the jungle, and GK said that she did very well, she was very brave. No, Oti said that GK had done very well and that she'd been very brave, with Danny saying he was amazed to be in the top 4, sad for the 2 of them to go, but obviously happy that he's now in the top. Reverend Richard said they need to stand up to the challenges that lie ahead. He is the man of the forest, but he has a splinter. We then found out the superhero costumes. So Oti was gold, with Oti saying to Danny that he needed to break the internet. Colleen was liking the purple that Danny was wearing, but she was obviously red. Reverend was blue, and Colleen said she can't believe that she's doing this. Red goes with her socks. Danny was the purple python, Colleen was the lava girl, Oti was Captain Pocker, and Reverend Richard was Steeple Man, ding dong. And Danny basically said, Python's getting a star. Colleen said she was shocked to be here, and Reverend Richard said he's going to eat the cyclone. What they had to do on their spinning twisters was put the stars onto the marker, move the stars up, and obviously, yeah, so the first person at the bottom would have 4 stars, the next one would take 3 of those stars and move up, the next one would take 2 of those stars, move up, the next one would take 1 of those stars, move up, and they have to just sit and wait. Obviously, the wardens and, you know, the people involved had all their water pistols, they had their balls, they had fire, they had everything, and it wasn't going to be as easy as that. So the order they decided to do was Reverend Richard first, he didn't have to travel as far, then OT, then Colleen, and then Danny would sprint all the way to the top. And apparently the wardens were a little bit extra dangerous and extra eager to knock them down. So yeah, water, balls and stars. Reverend Richard said that was as bad as a bad 70s movie. Oti said that she's almost knocked out by the Rangers. She was just protecting herself by kind of punching the balls out of the way. And Danny said he was protected by Colleen, and he was only brave whilst he was on his tummy. Colleen said the balls were in their face, the water was everywhere, and Oti said it was worth every snake and every critter, well done them, with Reverend Richard saying, I wish we could do that again. Oti also added this as their last lunch as a 4, with Danny having to complete secret missions to be able to win treats for all the campmates. So he basically had to hide a ranger and keep it hidden until further notice. So it was this tiny little ranger, so he hid it in the leaves, that's fine, he went back. The ranger was a little bit bigger, so there's a second one he had to hide. So in total he had to hide 4, so he had this one, that one, and then like a life-sized one that he had to hide somewhere. So in order to hide that one, he had to pretend to the other 3 to go and look for a koala somewhere that he'd apparently seen a koala hanging off the trees, so Danny could go to the toilet. He then hid the large one in the leader's lodge under the quilt in the middle of the 2 beds, with Oti saying he's playing games with us. Colleen asked him what he's up to, and Danny said, no, I'm not up to anything. And then Reverend Richard said to Colleen and Oti, do you suspect that something's happening? And yeah, anyway, the end of the task came, and Danny read out the note saying that there was four rangers that he had to hide in 4 minutes, and if they can now find those 4 rangers again, they're going to win ice creams for the 4 of them. And Danny said lying is bad, but it's worth it if you manage to get an ice cream out of it as well. And Reverend asked Danny what he was like at school, and he said he was like a teacher's mate. He was friends with one of his male teachers, and he kind of gave him the okay to like flirt with the girls. Colleen said that Wayne was the first boyfriend that she brought home, and for dinner they had wallaby wings. Colleen said it was a nice dinner, she was happy to help out. Reverend Richard said that a tongue twister such as unique New York was very difficult to say. Unique New York, unique. And then Danny joined in with his own one, Cheryl Cole, Cheryl Crow, Cheryl Cole, Cheryl Crow. Oti said it was sentimental, looking back on what they've learnt about themselves, and the cyclone has cycloned up since the last series. Danny said he's happy and sad. Colleen said she's had a lot more fun and the days have been a lot more rewarding as the days have gone on. And Oti said she wanted to play her song in camp because she has 3 plays of her song in total. We then found out it was either Oti or Danny who was going to be eliminated from the jungle, and in 4th place was quite a shock, but it was Oti. With Oti saying that she was going to miss the others, Danny told her to be strong. Well, she told Danny to be strong and she told Colleen to do it for the girls. So Oti came out of the jungle. She'd spent 22 days in there with spiders, snakes, fear of frogs, and also the ticket to Cyclone, and also managed to get out of 2 eliminations because she was immune. She asked Anton Deck whether it was fermented champagne, and she also didn't realise there was a spider in her face on one of those challenges. She said that her focus was just to focus and get the job done, because it's not about her, it's about feeding the children in the jungle. She enjoyed the people, she enjoyed the conversations. Jane got them all started, and then the conversations just never stopped. She, similarly to Melvin and some of the others, had 1 or 2 days of crying, but she said it was a unique experience. She's grateful to have been there, and she's still able to be happy after all of that. Anton Deck said to her that she was the person that was the go-to person, and she basically explained that she was a ray of sunshine. She knew when to give people space, she knew when to chat to people, she knew when someone wanted to have a cry or a cuddle or whatever. And she also added that for someone like Melvin, he was asked to be on the show, so he should obviously be grateful for the opportunity that he was given. She said that the challenge for her was cooking, the trials, and obviously whatever they had for dinner. And there was that one dinner that Maura had thrown away, not realising it was dinner, and she just couldn't deal with change constantly all the time. And then in terms of what she's learned about being on the show, she said she's learned about who she is. The group helped her to become a different version of herself. And she said that out of the final three, Colleen is strong, Reverend Richard is funny and sensitive, but she wants Danny to win the show. So that is the end of Saturday's episode. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Is That More Brandon? So in today's review, I'm going to be reviewing the 22nd and the final episode of I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. Now, what a series this has been. All 12 of the contestants in there were absolutely fantastic. I think all of them were great. And I think the thing is, there was no drama, no fighting, no drama. Little few disagreements about chores and trials and stuff, but there wasn't anyone that left the show, wasn't anyone that quit the show, wasn't anyone that was causing drama. Bit of mischief, bit of laziness, a bit of, you know, I don't want to do X, Y, Z, but everyone in there seemed absolutely lovely and everyone got along really well. So for Reverend Richard, for Colleen and Danny, this was their final day in the I'm a Celebrity jungle. Reverend asked Oti how she was, and he basically said that I'm very good, I'm just dancing. And Oti said that the four of them have had an amazing journey in the jungle. Reverend said after Oti's departure that she has been great to live with. Colleen said she was the lady in here that she's going to now miss. And Reverend Richard never thought he'd be in the final three. Colleen said that she's proud of herself and she's never really been proud of herself before. And Reverend said that it was a Reverend, a Rooney and a Rockstar who were in the final. They had to do 2 bush tucker trials in order to choose their own dinners, with Colleen saying that Wayne, when they went to some really fancy restaurant, thought he was dipping his fingers in the water bowl, but before you have your food, he was dipping his fingers in soup thinking it was the water. And the next challenge was called the Towers of Terror. So for the first trial, Colleen, Danny and Reverend Richard were strapped down into these yellow zones in order to win 6 stars. So a star each for the starters and a star each for the mains. Colleen decided to go to the top, Danny in the middle and Reverend Richard at the bottom. And all they had to do was move the yellow stars from Colleen's box at the top all the way around the little puzzle piece to Reverend Richard, who then dropped it into the yellow zone at the bottom. So they were obviously covered with cockroaches, crickets, the rest of it, you know what. And Colleen said it's the first time she's had snakes and she's not even looking at them. I think there was about 9 snakes in each of their boxes. Again, another one went up Danny's leg. One of them looked Danny straight in the eye. Some of them were blocking the stars so the celebrities weren't able to move. And Reverend asked Danny how many snakes he's had in his pants, saying it seems to be a bit of a natural habit. And Danny said that when Colleen had dropped the star down, she put the star right in front of the snake's face, so he wasn't able to move it. But nonetheless, they managed to get 6 out of the 6 stars, winning their starters and their mains. The second trial involved them having to create 2 star pieces, unscrewing them, throwing them down to the person below, and then making the 2 stars at the bottom. So they just slightly changed the order this time. So Reverend Richard was in the middle, you had Colleen at the top and Danny at the bottom. So Colleen was the one having to throw them. Colleen and Reverend Richard were both having to throw the pieces down. So Reverend was kind of in the like a middleman, and Danny was at the bottom having to actually make the stars. So yeah, they were covered with offal, fish guts. They're having to undo the different knots with cockroaches, crickets, and mealworms involved. Reverend said to Colleen that that was really quick because he managed to take forever to do his, and she managed to do hers really quick. And Colleen said to him, "Come on, Richard, hurry up," as if he was not trying. But they managed to get all 6 of those stars as well. So a total of 12, winning in their starters, their mains, their desserts and their drinks. Colleen said it was smelly, just kind of sitting around waiting. Danny said he's been on a great journey. And Reverend Richard said he was caught in quite a lot of knots and it was, yeah, very smelly. Colleen said they left the worst trial till last. She doesn't enjoy snakes. And when they got back to the camp, Danny said, "Hello, campmates." Oh wait, it's empty, as if because they are the final 3. So they then had to decide what they were having for their starters, mains, desserts and drinks. So Colleen had prosciutto for starters, spaghetti bolognese and garlic bread for her lunch. She decided to skip the dessert and just had a vodka and Pepsi Max. Danny had mozzarella and cheesy dips for his starters, a buttermilk crispy burger with jam, salted fries and mac and cheese for his lunch. Dessert was profiteroles with Nutella and cream, and again, drink, I think it was just a beer. And then Reverend Richard had a prawn cocktail for a starter, cottage pie with vegetables and gravy for a lunch, a fruit, teas and Wensleydale cheesecake, and then I'm presuming some sort of beer for his drink as well. Reverend Richard said that there's no 2 other people he'd rather be stuck in the jungle with. Danny said that having seen Reverend's transition from Ibiza to a Reverend, was a bit surreal, but then Reverend explained that it started when he was at church, and he'd remembered when he was younger that it was just a wonderful experience, so he just, you know, decided to then become the Reverend and change his ways. Colleen said that they're all winners and they should all celebrate whoever is winning that crown. We then found out that in third place with a public vote was Reverend Richard, so it was between Colleen and Danny who was going to win. Reverend Richard came down for his interview. He spent 18 days in the jungle, had a double laugh at the junkyard, had lots of trials, and obviously spoke about his outgrown nipples, or concave nipples, or whatever they were called. He said it was lovely to be here and lovely to be out of the jungle. And Antoinette asked him to sum up the experience, and he said it's not what he thought it would be. He's going to get pampered afterwards. The lows made the highs. And then obviously at the junkyard, having met Maura before, it was kind of nice to have that experience with her and to see her, and unsure of what was going to happen throughout the whole experience. He did try and make it as fun as possible. And he said that he ended up having a bromance with someone he wouldn't have expected it to be with. So with GK, there was instant infinity. He felt like that she'd known her his whole life, and she helped him get through the toughest times in the jungle. And he said that the toughest part for him was cockroaches in his face and his mouth, and then that fishbowl of junk that obviously Colleen wasn't able to do, but Reverend was managed to do completely by himself. He said in terms of the memories, there'd be sheer joy, testing himself around his limits, and obviously in life, if you're offered the chance of something, do it. He said it might be Colleen's year. And then we saw both Danny and Colleen come out for their interviews, because obviously we were going to do the interviews first, and then the winner was going to be announced. So both of them had survived 23 days in camp, and Danny said that it was quite intriguing and interesting that he's now become friends with the boxing legend. Colleen said obviously it's given her a whole insight at home, how she lives at home with the Rooneys. Danny said it was an emotional experience. He learnt a lot about himself. He had a lot of hard times and a lot of high times in there. Hungry, tired, lots of jobs to do. Learnt how valuable time was. He said in terms of music, he's missed music so much because music brings people together. And with Colleen, she said that everyone felt like they were their true selves, and people will obviously see that on the outside. Danny said he's sorry for some of his emotions. He didn't expect himself to open up as much. The jungle gives you perspective on life, about knowing more about yourself, and what would it mean for him to win. He said it would be incredible, it would be nice for people, and obviously it would stop people taking the mick out of him, because obviously his bandmate Dougie won it so many years ago. People would bully him if he came second instead of winning. And Colleen said switching the house and her boys for a camp was obviously quite difficult. She was still mummy in there, and she was still doing motherly-like things around the camp. She said it's now time to think about herself and her own strengths and weaknesses. She is strong, and it was definitely an experience that she's not going to forget. She said that in terms of what she's learnt that she can now be patient. She usually wants to just step in and do things, but sometimes she can just sit and let other people. It's okay for things not to get done. She said focus on yourself, your loved ones, and she said that the campmates were all down to earth. Having a fellow northerner in there made it all relatable. And she said that in terms of the junkyard and the koala situation that were both lies, she was able to sniff things out quite quickly. Dean seemed a little bit too calm when he was at the junkyard, and Maura's acting was a little bit too dramatic. She said for her to win, it would be an honour to be crowned the Queen. Her and her family probably loved watching her. She's been proud of her dad. They've been proud of the dad for so long, so now it's time to be proud of Mum. And then some of the contestants were having said things about them throughout the show. So for Danny, Dean said he's going to do the McFly fans proud. Talisa said that he brings light and fun energy. Barry said it's like having a fourth son. Maura said that he's kind, caring and funny. And GK said it was lovely having lived with someone in the band McFly. And then for Colleen, Oti said that she was brave, she was strong, she was a queen. Jane said that she's a grafter and a strong woman. Alan said as a fellow northerner, she understands that northern humour and those great stories. Melvin said she's a warrior and she's fearless. Dean said that she was a great mother and at the camp leader or camp mother, and GK said that she didn't complain once while she was in the jungle. We also found out that the 9 ex-campmates were there. Well, actually, yeah, we found out 9 of the ex-campmates were there. Talisa wasn't there. I don't think she went to the kind of reunion part on that show, but she ended up going to a different show afterwards, like kind of like what happened after the jungle. So yeah, I'm not really sure what happened there, but I know as soon as she left the jungle, she did post something online saying that she was a little bit overwhelmed, and obviously there's probably loads of news stories and stuff out about her and all of this, and she just wanted to post her time and her experience in the jungle when she felt was right, which is absolutely fair enough. She's not been on TV for 9, 10, 11 years, probably hasn't released music in a while, now starting to come back to it herself. Obviously it's going to be a bit overwhelmed because people are going to be like, oh my god, you look different, oh my god, you've changed, oh my god, you're old. Like, you don't want people coming up with their weird stories and things. No matter how famous you are, you don't expect it and you don't want it, but it's just going to happen. So I completely understand why she wasn't there for that, or why she hasn't posted anything, and now she's obviously started to post a little bit more. But yeah, so hopefully she's okay, and hopefully this actually does good for her career and not bad. But then we found out in the end, Danny, Colleen, we found out that the winner was in fact Danny. So Sam Thompson, the winner from last year, came and handed him his crown. Colleen said she didn't think she'd get this far. She was happy to share her journey with everyone. And Danny said that winning feels amazing. He can't even talk, it feels so surreal. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate it so much. So that was it for the 3rd week of I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. We have now found our winner in Danny Jones from McFly. Obviously Colleen second. And if we go backwards, we had Reverend Richard in 3rd, we had OT in 4th, we had GK in 5th, Alan in 6th, Maura in 7th, Barry in 8th, Melvin in 9th, Talisa in 10th, Dean in 11th, and Jane in 12th. So they were our top 12, they were the 12. But like I said, very, very good cast. I think all of them were really lovely. All of them were very genuine. Like I said, other than those little flip-floppy moments between like Alan and Dean, or Jane and Barry, like when they were just disagreeing about tasks they didn't want to do, or not doing the tasks and whatever, or burning the rice, I think everyone kind of pulled their own weight. And like I said, it was a very good cast. So good mix of people. Nice to have a few younger ones in there, a couple of social media young radio people, but also lovely to have, you know, boxers, you know, a singer-songwriter who basically created Little Mix's career, other TV personalities who are just known as someone's partner who can now actually speak for themselves. So yeah, it was a very interesting cast, and obviously you got 2 loose women in there as well, which was nice to see. So yeah, if you did enjoy my review, don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. And if you did enjoy my 3rd week of I'm a Celebrity reviews, again, don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. Let me know down below who are your favourites, who are your least favourites, who would you like to see in there next year. Obviously not me, because I'm not famous. I probably wouldn't do that anyway. But until my next review, thank you for watching, and until my next series, don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe, and I'll be back with you with another review as soon as I can. And until the next one, thank you and goodbye.